Hey, this is Sturdy McKee. I help business owners make the world a better place by working directly with them one-on-one or in small groups. And you can always check out upcoming events, webinars, and a bunch of free information to help you and your business over at my website, sturdymckee.com. Today we'll be focusing on the 5 critical processes in a physical therapist's private practice. Now, these will apply to most other businesses as well, and what I've found is that 80 to 90% of what happens in most businesses is common to others, even across industries. So if you own a small business, stay with me and see what parts apply to your business. In working with and talking with hundreds of business owners over the last few years, I've come down to a couple simple conclusions. 1, manage the process. And 2, there are really only a few processes that are truly critical. These are the ones that all the others rely on, the ones that must get done for your business to survive and thrive. There's a ton of information out there about business and about physical therapist private practice specifically that simply did not exist 20 years ago. But much of the information is presented in a way that makes things more complicated. So my goal here is to demystify the most foundational and critical processes and help you prioritize and simplify your focus to gain control of the basics before trying to chase every metric. There are people out there telling you to track everything. What do you do with that? Or they offer you a download of their 55 processes to implement in order to run your practice smoothly. But which ones do you start with? And who can implement 55 processes, especially simultaneously? So surely some of those processes are more important than others. There's got to be a hierarchy. I recently saw a social media posting with an offer to download our 13 critical metrics to manage your practice better. First off, 13? Really? So which one do I start with? And don't and this is important. You don't manage metrics anyway. You manage people and processes. But if you are currently trying to manage the metrics or to the metrics, don't feel bad. I bought into that myth for a long time. The problem with it is it just doesn't work. So what I've learned is the metrics are like your dashboard on your car. They give you information. They can tell you that something is wrong or that something seems to be running fine. They might be telling you that your car is overheating or you need to check your engine. But the dashboard and the metrics do not give you a diagnosis. They simply tell you that something isn't right and might tell you where to look next. So my goal here is to help you build a stable and sustainable business so that you have a platform to go farther and do cool, new, interesting things. So back to the dashboard and metrics idea. When we try to manage the metrics, we often find ourselves explaining to people about the number. We tell them we need the number to change. We skip something that we do in treatment every day. We skip breaking down the component parts and going through the process with them. This is like coaching a hitter in baseball and telling them to hit more. No good coach would do that. Instead, they would break down the component parts, address those. They might start with foot placement, then hand position, then how the batter is approaching the swing. By going back to the process, they have a better chance of helping with the swing and getting more hits. Let's look at my 3 columns here. The process, how it's measured, and who's responsible. You will notice that the metrics, the how is it measured, is the output from the process. Without a process, a written, documented, shared, and repeatable process, how in the world can we expect a predictable outcome? So we'll start with the first process here, marketing activities. You can read more about this on my blog. I'll add a link. Here's the link to the article on the slide. I'll add a link in the comments below. And you'll notice that I've intentionally used marketing activities. I'm not referring to marketing as a department or a group of people. It's not a kind of entity. Marketing activities are the things that you do. The actions beget the results. And you want documented, repeatable actions that you can share and have people on your team do that turn into the desired result. So whether it's visits to physicians' offices or hosting workshops or teaching trainers or sharing information via social media or educational information on your website or simply great service and handing out your business card, it is the activity that creates the result. And you'll measure the effectiveness of your marketing activity by the number of leads you generate. This is the ultimate outcome. Let's take a moment to define leads here. A lead is simply anyone inquiring about your services. So whether they call, email, fill out a form, attend a workshop, or have expressed interest in what you offer, walk in, regardless of the channel. If they inquire about your services, they are considered a lead. I'm going to make a point here that I'm not interested in Facebook likes or SEO rankings or even site traffic if those do not turn into leads. So your marketing activities are effective if they generate leads. Who's responsible is the third column, and this is whoever is doing or coordinating the marketing activities. Critical process number 2, the new patient or the client intake. Do you have a way that your team does a new patient intake? Is it written down? Does everyone follow it consistently? If not yet, and you notice I just said yet there, you can check out a 6-minute video on my website entitled New Patient Awesome Intake under Resources menu. The link is right here, and I'll make sure that it's in the comments as well. It will take you through a proven process that many of my clients are using and that we use in our practice. I highly recommend sharing it with your team and having a discussion about it. You can use it to kickstart your own tailored process. The point of this process is to turn leads into paying customers. That's how we measure the effectiveness of this process. It's called a conversion rate. How many people convert from interested to actual paying customers and patients? Following the process, implementing it consistently will allow you to produce a predictable result. Who's responsible? Anyone who answers the phone. If you pick up the phone in your clinic, you need to follow the same process everyone else is. If a physical therapist picks up the phone, they need to be willing and able to follow your process. The process is in place because it works. So why would we not train everyone who's going to answer the phone to follow the process that works? Critical process number 3, selling the plan of care. Now I know that using the word selling or sales is the second scariest or most off-putting thing you can say or do to a physical therapist. But what we are talking about here is a way to have a conversation and get buy-in or agreement from the patient around the plan that the therapist is prescribing. This is something we're not taught in school. We're taught how to come up with the ideal plan of care, and that's what we are tested on. But we are not taught how to discuss this with our patients and make sure that we obtain buy-in from them. Having a process that ties treatment back to the patient's goals and then asking them one really important question is your key to this process. So what is that really important question? It follows you, the therapist, explaining the ideal plan of care to the patient. And the question is, how does that sound to you? When you ask this open-ended question, it gives the patient permission to share with you their concerns, misgivings, obstacles, and objections. Maybe they didn't think it was going to take that long, or they're busy with competing priorities. Maybe they have a high deductible and we're not prepared for the expense. Maybe they aren't sure you're the right person to help them and they want reassurance that this is the best, most efficient path to get them to their goals. When they get to express these concerns, you have an opportunity to address them. You have an opportunity to make sure that person feels heard and listened to. And you have an opportunity to create a plan of care that fits for them that they will actually follow. The measure of the effectiveness of your plan of care process is visits per case. You will want your visit per case number to match as closely as possible the plans of care as written. Who's responsible? Your clinical staff. Whoever is doing the new patient evaluations is responsible for following and consistently delivering on the process. Now remember, the plans of care you are now documenting are those that are already agreed to by your patient. So you are not trying to increase the visit number beyond what your patient needs. You are trying to have all of your patients complete their plans of care in order to achieve their goals. Again, we want these numbers to match. And when you have done that, when you've done it well, your patients are happy, your team members are happy, referral sources are happy, and you're happy. It's a true win for everyone involved. The fourth process is bill for what you do. This is one of my pet peeves for therapists in the United States. For my Canadian friends, you may be able to skip past this process. But simply put, I want you to get paid for the work that you do or that you've already done. Your written process should note that the documentation should match the billing. You want the most appropriate code to be billed for each intervention. And you want no time rounding to the fives or tens, but that the actual time for each intervention is accurately documented. When this is followed consistently, I often see an increase of a few tenths of a unit per visit, which can translate to a 5 or 10% increase in your charges and revenue. So who's responsible? Your clinical staff, whoever's doing the billing. And critical process number 5, manage your expenses. You can check out the article, the first 4 chapters from Greg Crabtree's Simple Numbers, or the summary of it on my blog. Greg works backwards when setting a budget. He recommends that you start with your profit first. You then subtract your overhead expenses, and the number you are left with is your salary cap, what you can spend on personnel and related expenses. That's going to include all benefits, taxes, insurance, basically every expense that scales and is associated with the people part of your business. Once you have your overhead budget and your personnel expenses budget, you can manage these two expenses to ensure you preserve your profit. The process is reviewing all of your expenses, and the metric is making sure that they match your budget. Who's responsible? You are. And again, the link to the resource is down here on the bottom left. So if you have these 5 critical processes operating, your marketing activities with enough leads, your intake process with a consistent and predictable conversion rate and thus a predictable number of new patients, your plan of care process which ensures your patients are showing up according to their agreed upon plans of care as measured by visits per case, your billing process tracked by units per visit, and you are managing your expenses according to your budget, do you have a stable and sustainable business? You will be able to establish and preserve a profit and have a stable and viable business by consistently executing on these 5 processes. My challenge question for you is, what will you do to keep these 5 things going and on track in your business? So if you want the answer to that question, or help ensuring these 5 critical processes are consistently implemented and executed in your business, I invite you to do one of 2 things. You can schedule a time with me by sending an email to sturdy@sturdymckee.com. Let's schedule a time to talk. Or you can join us for the PT Private Practice University by visiting sturdymckee.com/events. There you will find more information about the PT Private Practice University content, dates, locations, and more. Thank you very much for listening, and I wish you the best in your business.